Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Matthew, my brother, how are you?
Good, man. Good to see you, bud.
Me too. So I want to dive right into this. There is the tariff trade war going on. China, who holds billions of dollars, if not trillions, of our debt and bonds, have been threatening to sell off the bonds.
Right.
Walk us through what would happen if they did that.
So it's actually a detail that a lot of people are going to want to focus on. And this stuff, the problem is that this stuff's so out there and so convoluted. This is not the average financial information that people look at.
Yep.
But of course, of the nature of my business, right? Obviously, the precious metals. This is the stuff that we want to talk about because this is really the nuts and bolts of what's going to be happening. As you can see, the trade war, so to speak, with China, we don't really know what's going on there, right? China's saying that they haven't come to the table, and right, Trump's saying that they have, and right, it's all these games that are being played. But China's got one last move, and just remember, before let me also preface this with what's going on is our deep state are the people that run China.
Yep.
Right. So in other words, what Hillary Clinton, Obama, and all these, Soros was, they were just going to take our wealth from our country and move it over to communist China, right? Probably go to war with them. We'd intentionally lose the war to China. Why? So that they could get rid of the Constitution, right? So let's before we even get into this, let's put it in perspective. This is what was going to happen had Hillary Clinton won in 2016. Okay. China holds trillions of dollars in U.S. debt, and the way money's created is it's created through the creation of bonds, specifically treasury bonds or T-bills, right? You see that terminology. China holds massive amounts of our debt. So they have one major move left that they could pull on the United States, and that is they could sell off their United States treasury bonds, right? Trillions of dollars of treasury bonds, and essentially flood our country with dollars, right? Creating massive inflation, massive problems, right? So that's essentially their probably what they're going to do by the time this is all said and done, right? The last move is going to be the financial move because that's the move that hits everybody in the pocketbook. That's when everybody, right? No one complained about Joe Biden until gas hit, $4 or $5 a gallon, right?
Yep.
I mean, maybe we were complaining, but the average person wasn't, right?
The average person wasn't, yep.
So you got to remember is like, I always think of these things in terms of real human dynamics, right? And people, unfortunately, we learn the hard way, right? So it's only until your pocketbook gets hit. So China's going to offload these treasury bonds. And what did the Fed say? Maybe a month or two ago? They said they're not gonna lower rates for the rest of the year.
Yeah,
right. Kind of they think they're trapping Trump into essentially, right. They're going to send over all this debt, right. The Fed probably by the end of the year is going to be forced to lower rates because of all this new money in our circulation. They're going to have to lower rates. Well, what should that do? That should drive up the price of the precious metals.
Yes.
Right. And the only buyer of these treasury bonds is the Federal Reserve. So what's Trump doing? He's starting off with Doge, and we've looked into USAID. Next, it might be Fort Knox. Where this is all leading to, what are we doing? We're looking into these organizations. Eventually, what are we going to look into? The Federal Reserve.
Federal Reserve.
Right. And the Federal Reserve, the way the Federal Reserve works is that they have an on-balance sheet and they have an off-balance sheet. Right. The on-balance sheet's the stuff that we see as people. And I think the last time I checked was like $13 trillion. Crazy amount of money, right? But 13 trillion. Their off-balance sheet, which we don't get a chance to see, my guess, and no one knows, my guess, $5 quadrillion.
Yeah.
Because right. Remember the money printing machine Congress had?
Yep. They had a printing machine in Congress that nobody knew about for decades.
If Congress has that, you don't think the Federal Reserve has that? No, they want to be the buyer and seller of last resort, right? The Federal Reserve was going to completely capture our monetary system entirely, and they were going to move us into some digital prison, right? Well, thankfully, Trump outlawed, right, through executive order, he outlawed the digital currency, right? That was one of the first things that he did in office, was he did an executive order. So what does that mean? That means that think of our system as a sinking ship. Well, not only is the ship sinking, but Trump just went and torched all the life rafts too, right? The life rafts were the digital system so that they can continue this whole Ponzi scheme of a system. So that's why, knowing that these events are about to take place, that's why it's so important you get your money out of these financial institutions, getting your money out of the dollar. The dollar's not going away. It's just the Federal Reserve version, right? You look at your dollar bill, it says Federal Reserve on it. You get out of the Federal Reserve system. And then, if you have an IRA, 401k, you get out of the markets, right? Because once the debt market explodes, which is what we're effectively talking about, the debt market the stock market will follow suit.
Yeah. And I want to really quickly touch on this. So Middle East is the new Europe. Those are our new allies. Those are our new friends. Europe is screwed. They're going to go fight with Russia. Russia, going to collapse. When it comes to India, India's the new China because they're not communists. Modi and Trump were friends since before politics. Modi is a lot like Trump. He's a self-made businessman. Modi's father and Trump's dad were friends. I just found out.
I didn't know that either.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And so Modi is a populist of India. He's not a communist. He wants to get along and make money. He doesn't want to spy on us. And what you said earlier about if Hillary Clinton won, 100%. Do you remember the spy balloons under Joe Biden of China? Do you remember China buying property all over close to military bases? Do you remember what happened in Alaska when Biden's delegation and Chinese delegation met and the Chinese delegation embarrassed Biden's people on American soil in front of American cameras? So here's what I think is going to happen. This is my prediction. The Middle East is now our new best friend. It is no longer Europe. India is going to replace China. Last I read, almost 90 factories have already moved from China to India.
Wow.
Because no tariff. India said, we're removing all tariffs, fair trade, let's get it going. China is going to fight tooth and nail to the very end. And one more thing, this is what I was talking to some relatives yesterday who, they follow the Russia-Ukraine war a lot. My prediction is Russia screwed. Trump gave Russia many chances, end the war, stop the conflict. And what did Marco Rubio say a few days ago? Russia wants too much. They want America to kick out Ukraine from their own territory. He said, you've been fighting for 3.5 years. You still didn't take over all of Donbass. You still got hundreds of miles to go. He said, just like Zelensky telling Trump, kick out the Russians out of Crimea. Trump's like, that's stupid. Now Putin is asking for, and Trump's like, you know what? You want to fight? Go fight. Go fight. Because Trump wanted to stop it where the lines are. He got Zelensky to agree to it. The only reason there's been no ceasefire, the only reason they haven't stopped at the lines is from Putin's side. Because Zelensky, Trump can squeeze him easily. And so I think Trump is going to wash his hands off this situation, saying, go deal with Europe and all them.
Yeah.
I'm going to go make money. And now the Middle East is going to be the new Europe, and India is going to be the new China. But, Europe, that's nothing. The UK is our only ally there because of our history.
And even the UK, a lot of this, realistically, all of this stuff's run out of the city of London. So that's a whole nother can.
Yeah, that's a whole nother, but you know what I mean. The only one that we have ever truly had a history with is them. Now, when it comes to China, and if you look, and another thing, Russia's deep state runs Russia. Why? Because the Russian media never talks about them. Ukrainian deep state runs Ukraine because their media can say nothing against them. Chinese deep state runs China. It's only in America where our own media shits on our own president because they are part of the deep state and he is not.
Unbelievable.
He is not. And here's what's happening. Well, and then you go to the Middle East, they'll cut off your head if you talk about it.
And I'll just say, just on the discussion of our media, is just remember, none of the stuff that's really happening in the financial system, right, is ever going to be reported on by the media because it's going to happen at a time of their choosing, right, when it's good for them, right? So unfortunately, right, we can talk about this stuff all day, but nothing becomes real until you see it on the fake news, until you see it on CNBC or Fox News, right, one of these bogus channels. So that's why I always try to tell people is a big part of my job, just doing gold and silver, is trying to get is not just selling somebody gold and silver. Like when your audience calls, I want to give them a lens. I want them to see, okay, here's the dynamics really at play. And it's very different than what you see in the mainstream.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. And that's why I think, and not to create some false sense of urgency, but you really want to get in front of this thing. You want to be preemptive. If you are looking at precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, you really want to get this. You want to get in front of this thing. You don't want these events to start playing out and become more and more obvious. Because by that time it's like, okay, what's our ability to get gold and silver? What's my inventory like? Right. I'm probably sold out. I'm probably trying to get people to sell their gold and silver, right? So I can get it to people that want it. So realistically, I always tell people the only urgency I would say is the political and geopolitical events are going to lead. And then the fallout will be in the financial system, right?
Yeah.
It's going to flow to that.
And you kind of like what you said, you tell people, kind of warn them, something that the media doesn't. Scripture tells us that a wise man sees trouble and prepares for it. Other scripture, other translations say he goes around it, avoids it. But the main thing is he's prepared for when it comes here. And so, I believe that China, their last stand, if the tariff war, they don't make a deal. If they don't make a deal, which I don't know if they will or not, no one knows. But I think their last stand, and even if they do make a deal, all these companies are still going to see like, dude, we've always trade wars between Russia and America. Now Trump has set a precedent that a country like America or a European nation that, that is like 30, 40, 50% of the Chinese market can go to a trade war and win. China's not as powerful as they say they are or think they are. And that's going to set a precedent for other nations to go for trade wars and tariff wars against China. And companies within China are going to say, we're out.
Yeah, and also just remember, something that's coming to mind is we're going to start seeing military tribunals.
Yep.
That's actually been announced by, I think, Cash himself.
Yeah.
Right? I think Cash and Trump have been talking about that.
Dan Bongino and when they were doing.
Right.
Yeah.
So you got to figure is that, okay, if we're going to start arresting some of these people for whether it be the 2020 election stuff, it's probably going to start with the Russia hoax.
Yep.
Right. It's probably going to start there. We're going to go. My guess is that we're going to go back through all the stuff we started with Trump. We're going to revisit all of it.
I think even before Trump, I think we're going to go to the Iraq war, the lies that we were told. Yeah. I mean, we're going to go to the 90s to the Clintons.
I'm just saying from that truth that Trump put out last week with the Clintons, all the people the Clintons killed.
Yep.
Right. He's creating the narrative. You can see what Trump's doing. He's creating the narrative that, hey, these people are not who you think they are. Hillary Clinton, I hate to say it, but she's a mass murderer.
Yes.
Oh. She's a serial killer.
Yes.
Literally. And I'm sure your audience understands this, but you got to remember, is once this stuff starts getting exposed,
her and Vladimir Putin are very similar.
Yeah, it's gonna be her. But think about it; it's not even just her. It's the law firms,
yes.
Perkins and Coie, and all these different law firms. These guys are up to their ears in murder and treason and crimes against humanity, and these guys have been covering it up for years. And all Trump's doing is airing it out. The more he airs this stuff out, the more the reaction to that. For every action, there's a reaction, right?
Yep.
The reaction is going to be, okay, we got to go after the banking system and just create as much chaos as possible so that, right, we can escape in the chaos. That's what they're hoping to do. I don't think they're going to get away with it.
No, and it's going to happen. These people will be held. I mean, when Trump was running this time, he even said, if I'm reelected, I'm not going to play soft anymore. You got to understand, this is not the Trump of the first presidency. When he won the first time and we started calling, when is Hillary going to prison? What did he say? It was a very famous
building
speech.
The infrastructure for this moment in time. So at that time, he was building the infrastructure. He was building Gitmo, right? He expanded Gitmo. All right. Now he's on the offense.
Well, I think then he thought, I genuinely think, this is just my opinion. I think he thought like, okay, I've seen these politicians before run, attack each other, but when they win, they just kind of go their separate ways. He didn't, but then he's like, wow, these people hate me more than I thought they do. Then he saw what they did in 2020, impeachment number 1, impeachment number 2, January 6th. They raided his home. They kept doing and doing and doing. And this is one who wants to leave a legacy of draining the swamp, bringing the money back, ending the war, securing the border. And now, and I like his energy. He's moving fast. He's going forward. I can't wait. But let's wrap it up with this. Give yourself a shout out.
Give me a call anytime. Happy to talk to anybody. I think some of this is worth a discussion. We can only fit so much into this show, but if you have any interests, and if you're looking at gold and silver, whatever the case may be, call me. We can chat. It's one of those things where there's so much stuff going on out there. I think it's really very wise to at least look at this stuff and try to understand it. So happy to help.
Boom. And